All right, guys, welcome back to another episode on the abundance.io podcast. I got a good friend here, Tanner Chidester with Elite CEOs. It's good to see you, my friend. I've watched your growth over the years. You came up out of nowhere. You're barely 30 and you are freaking crushing it, my dude. It's so good to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here. And like you said, glad we got the inbox sorted out so we could hook up.
Yeah, hiring an assistant is great, but man, there's a big learning curve in the beginning.
100%.
I literally missed a meeting yesterday because you moved it to my urgent box. I'm like, when do we get an urgent box?
Yeah, exactly. So no, I'm glad it worked out, but it's like we have the general and the primary and we slide stuff over, stuff gets left unread, but no, I'm glad we were able to work it out.
Fantastic. So you just moved out to Miami. It feels like a lot of guests I've gotten on the show. Like people are like, Miami is the new spot. What brought you out to Miami?
It's funny. I grew up in Houston and I was getting an apartment. I had it ready to go. And then like the day before I was going to sign, the rental agent just gave it to someone else. And I don't know what happened, but I think they just bid higher and she just gave it away.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to just go travel for a bit. So I came out to Miami. I did the Airbnb for about 2 months. I learned my lesson because I used to move without doing anything. I go out for a week. I'm like, oh, it's amazing. But I came out here, I got an Airbnb for 2 months and I loved it. And then I moved out here and I've been here ever since, except for the, little stint in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
So besides that.
And Puerto Rico is definitely a thumbs down.
Thumbs down, thumbs down. It was like, it wasn't as bad. And that's the thing too. Like it's not as bad as people make it sound, but I think it just comes down to, for me, I was going back and forth between Miami. So I think if you're going to do it, Miami's the best place because it's a 2-hour flight.
Right.
So it's like as close as you can get. But ultimately, I was coming back and forth. And then, I just had some of my friends talk to me. He's like, hey, man, like, why are you really there? And once you think through it, it's just not worth it. And then the tax saving strategy wasn't really how they said. So what ends up happening is, it's 3 years for the rule to apply.
Right.
And then the first year, part of your income still has to be taxed at the U.S. level and the second year and the third year. So you don't really get to 0% till the fourth year. And so to me, I'm like, well, that's dumb. Like I thought it was going to be year one. So just a lot of stuff that happened that I wasn't super aware of, but super grateful for the experience.
Yeah, you live and you learn. And that was the same thing for me and my financial advisor. Like, dude, live wherever you want and just get smart about your money.
Yeah.
Right? Like there are ways the wealthy live wherever they want, the billionaires live wherever they want. And they're smart about their money. So it's really just like get around people that understand it. Put out your values, where you like, why do you actually want to live there? And then like build something around that.
Yeah.
So,
and I think the mindset's better. And that was part of it. Is one of my friends, he said, well, look, billionaires are living in New York. So what do they know that you don't? They're not all going down to Puerto Rico. While there are some there, I just think it's a better mindset to try to make more than go, how can I save what I'm making? So I really agreed when he said that, and that's kind of what brought me back.
That's literally what I said to me. He's like, just go make more money. And like, you know what? That's so, because by the time you're traveling back and forth and trying to manage your schedule and how many days am I there? It's
100%. And the days and the counting, it just ends up being a huge hassle. And you're training convenience for the money, but the whole point of us starting the business was to get convenience, right? And so it kind of goes backwards.
Like I'm shooting myself in my own foot.
Exactly.
So, when did you first start your business?
Shoot, I tried to start a business. So I was like 23-ish, so about 7 years ago. And I utterly failed. I mean, it was the first time, so no one in my family had ever done it. So I want to say it was 7 years from now, about 2015, 2016. And I didn't start making money until 2 years later. And during that period, I almost quit about 5 times. Mm-hmm. So the fact that I'm even here, it's crazy because I look at the opportunity cost of what I would have made as an engineer to what I made now. And it's, millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. But it's crazy because I didn't make any money the first 2 years. And I'm glad because it actually helps you relate to people a lot more when they're struggling. Because when you're working, at least for me, I was working 16 hours a day. And you're not getting any results, you start questioning, well, why am I doing this?
Right.
Like I might as well just watch TV because I'm putting in all this time, I'm getting nothing out of it. So why not just relax?
Yeah. No, it's an important point. And the opportunity cost is such a thing. People talk about, this investment for my business, this investment into a mentor, this investment into a consultant is going to be 20 grand or $5 grand or whatever. And they're like, that's so much money. I don't have that. It's like that barrier is keeping you from making the millions of dollars. Right.
100%.
The wealthy think, what am I going to get out of this? Not what am I losing?
Yeah.
And that's the way that people think differently. And it took me a long time to learn that lesson.
Well, and it's funny too, because I've always, at least the last few years, as I made more money, I'm always looking at these investments. Yeah. And when it's all said and done, if you have a very aggressive investment, let's say you get 30%, which is very aggressive. you're going to make way more than that typically when you just invest in your own business. So a lot of times we take our eye off the prize of what's made us all this money and we go over here and we forget that putting money in here gives us like 10,000% returns, 1,000% returns. So I'm with you on that 100%. I think it's like a good thing for people to learn.
Even when you look at like Warren Buffett, right? He talks about diversify your income and talks about all these like different ways, like slowly building wealth. It's like his first big leap was his equity in his own company.
Yeah. 100%.
These billionaires, when they cash out and they make $300 million in a couple of years, that's equity they're pulling out of the company that they built, that they invested in to get them there.
Yeah.
And it pisses me off when I hear a lot of these big hedge fund guys and a lot of these people that are all over TV that are like, well, put it all in your 401k and then put it in over here. Just like, dude, you are robbing these people blind.
Yeah.
And like, if you have under 100K, go invest in yourself. Go find those people that are going to give you the shortcuts. Like, that's how it is. When you see people like you making multiple millions of dollars before you were 30 years old, what was that path that you took to get you there? Because it sounds like it wasn't the traditional path.
No. So I lucked out from the sense that I met a mentor named David Fry. So he knew about the ClickFunnels world. He was married. He's married still to one of Russell Brunson's cousins. So he's very tight with Russell. A lot of times we go to ClickFunnels and Russell's like, David Fry. And I'm like, damn, this guy's famous. Like, this is awesome. So he convinced me to actually drop out of school. And I don't think I would have without him because it just.
How did you meet him, by the way?
It was my dad. So they actually went to church together.
Okay.
And so I feel bad about this. And I've said this multiple times. So he made a deal with me because my dad's very religious and so is he. And he's like, hey, like, you're not going to church. I'm like, yeah, I don't really want to go. He said, well, look, if you go back to church, I'll show you how to build a business because you want to make a lot of money, right? And that really was my goal because as I grew up as a kid, my dad was a teacher. And so my dad works harder than anyone I know. That's probably one of the best things he gave me. But he was doing a bunch of odd jobs because, teacher salary just doesn't go that far.
Yeah.
And so he brings me in, he gets me to drop out of school, have a year left of engineering school. And he's like, you know what? He's like, don't finish. I'm like, well, dude, I got to finish. He's like, no, he's like, if you finish, you're never going to start your business. And I just remember, I don't know, like I just knew that was true.
Wow.
And I said, okay, I'm going to do it. So I drop out. I go to his house. He starts teaching me everything I know about marketing, just funnels, email automations, opt-ins. And I would say stuff, why do they call this an opt-in? It doesn't even make sense. Why don't they just call it a fill out the form? He's like, Tanner, shut up. Just do what I tell you to say. Right. So I built out this whole product over a year, a whole low ticket product, which I actually don't recommend people start with that, but that's just what he knew. Mm-hmm. And so I built out this whole product and I go to sell it and I make no money for 2 years, like $2,000. Because a $47 product, if you're not running ads, which I didn't really know how to do it or I didn't have cash, the only way I could sell it was I just thought you put a link up and you get rich. That's how I thought people made money, because that's what they show with influencers. That's how people think. And then one day I basically saw an ad. I was doing door-to-door sales. I was a server. And basically my methodology and my plan was I'm going to work as little as possible so I can still pay bills, but then the rest of my time has to go in my business. And I still tell people to do that.
Oh, 100%.
I think that's the only way. When you're working 8 hours a day and you go home and try to do it, you're toast. Like you're mentally so exhausted. And then you have kids, a family. Like it's too hard in my opinion. So I did that. And then right when I was about to quit, I called him about 5 times, said, hey man, like I'm going back to school. Like it's not working. I don't know why, but just when he would talk to me like, Tanner, he's like, don't quit. He's like, you can do this. He's like, I'm not just saying this, like you can do this. And I was like, oh, he's probably just saying that, whatever. But finally I get in a program. I see an ad right before I'm about to go to school. It's like how to build an online fitness business. And I'm like, all right, I'll click on this. And I get on the call. I get high pressure sold super hard. Oh, yeah. And I was indoor door sales and I didn't know what this was. And he's like, oh yeah, it's only today if you don't do it today. So I paid $2,000. Never had a credit card before. I'm 25. I go get a credit card for the next $3,000. And I come in and I start watching the videos and I'm like, I don't want to watch all this mindset stuff. Like, I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm just like, give me the juice. Give me the juice. Right. So I just message the coach. I say, just tell me what to do. He goes, all right, go from 47 to 1,500 and DM people for a sales call. I'm like, that's what I paid $5,000 for. So anyways, I do it and I make $10,000 in a week. And I'm like, oh shit. I remember the moment, like I literally said, oh shit. I was closing a deal, driving in my car, like doing the PayPal, like 60 miles an hour. It's like totally dangerous.
Kids don't do that at home.
Yeah, don't do that. And I closed it. I just remember the second he hung up, I was like screaming at the top of my lungs because I just gone through like hell, it felt like. And then I call my parents. I say, hey, I'm going to quit my door-to-door job. I'm going to move home. Let me pay you guys like a little bit of rent. And I promise, like, I'm just going to go crazy. And my mom and dad, I'm lucky to have them because they've always said, hey, as long as you're not doing drugs and like wasting your life, like, we don't care.
Yeah.
And then over the next year, I did $1 million, just going like ham. Like, I gave up everything, like anything and everything.
And when you say anything and everything, like, what were you doing that you actually gave up?
Yeah. So I did not leave the house, like, besides maybe an hour a day, if that. And so I'm not saying you should do this, but mentally, physically, I was getting out of shape. Mentally, I was stressed out of my mind. Like, I at one point was like starting to lose hair. It was not good, but I don't know, just when you've been in a bad spot, it's relative, right? So some people hear and like, oh yeah, but for me, I was at the lowest of the low, and I just got to a point when I turned 25. I don't know what, there's just something that clicked. Like, it's almost like, when our wives or girlfriends are like, oh, I gotta have a baby. I gotta have a baby. Like, it's almost like I just had this moment where I said, if I don't do it now, like, I just will never do it. And it was almost like I would rather be homeless than not succeed.
Yep.
And I don't know, like, when you're 22 and 23, I wish someone had stopped me sooner and said, hey, you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
But everyone just kept saying, oh, you're young.
Yeah.
You're good. And I actually think that's,
I really
I hate
dislike
when
that
people
saying.
hate that. Yeah. I hate it when people say that. And
You got plenty of time. It's like, bro, you're
I would've started 3
60
years
and you
sooner.
haven't done shit.
Yeah, I
don't want to hear that.
I know. It's like, and like, I love Gary Vee, but that's like Gary Vee. Gary Vee's like, you're 70, you're good. You got time. But anyway, so at 25, that's what happened. And then I moved home. I went crazy on my fitness business. And then because I had success, I got my first ClickFunnels award.
Yep.
And so, I actually like what Russell's done because, for better or worse, like, those little awards, they carry so much weight. And so people are like, yo, you're not a business coach. You did this with fitness.
Yep.
And so all these trainers started flooding to me, and they're like, hey, like, how did you do it? I was like, hey guys, like, I don't really like the business coaching world and, doing this. And I started helping them. I made another company called Fitness CEOs that went to $1 million in 3 months. And it was just, I think part of it was just, I could triple the price point, quadruple the price point. I had proof of concept.
And you were so niche, right?
Yeah, of course.
You're copying everything. Yeah.
And no one's doing it, right? Especially when you niche down. That's the power. Like, you have a little bit, you can't go quite as broad, right? And I'm sure you've noticed that with ads and stuff. But like, you can take over the market a lot easier because there's just less options, right? So you stand out more. And then from there, that year I did 10 million. And then the next year we did 15. And then that's finally when I was like, I took a breath.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, like, I'm going to be okay for the rest of my life. So that's kind of like the long story short, but it was,
so powerful.
Crazy.
What I love about what Russell did, and Elon talks about this as well. Like, Elon's like, we have baby showers. Why don't we have business showers?
Yeah.
Why don't we celebrate you starting your business
awesome.
and bring you over a laptop and bring you over like a Remarkable and bring you over like some business cards? Like, why doesn't that shit happen? And I love what Russell's done. Is like, let's award entrepreneurs. Let's give them a stage and like reward them for doing well, because we get it. And, pro athletes get it, musicians.
Well,
get
you're all
it,
by yourself.
Actors get it.
You're all by yourself. Like, a lot of us, especially with the internet, we're just all working at home.
Yeah.
Because we don't need the big overhead and office and stuff.
That's what I love about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you kind of get lonely, right? And so I didn't even really know that world existed. But when I finally got the award, I didn't, it holds some weight. It holds weight for some people because it's kind of like, hey, like, I've made some money. And so I don't know how much I've made because of Russell, but I probably made more than I would have without him,
for sure.
So he's a good guy.
And what I love about people like Russell, people that create a big stage like that, is they give us the permission to think bigger.
Oh yeah.
When you come in, you're like, because I felt good. I was like, oh, I made $1 million in my second year in business, and I was like, oh, I'm good. Like, I'm good. It's like, really, guys, at this day and age, $1 million really ain't all that.
It's not that much anymore.
No, it really isn't. You can't retire on that.
No,
you can't. You need more like 7, 8, 9, 10 in the bank, and then have smart investments to where we still got a long way to go, but in 30 years, we don't know where inflation is going to be at.
Yeah.
So when people are like, oh, I just want to be a millionaire, it's like, that's the new 6-figure earner.
Yeah. Or less.
Or
with inflation. I like your point what you said about Russell, though. It's like the 4-minute mile. And I've seen that. The first person I saw that actually helped me, we're not like super close, like we know each other, we were acquaintances, but like Billy Jean, I remember seeing his ads, and that was the first guy I was like, this guy is like super rich. I'm like, what? I'm like, I can do this. And it wasn't in a negative way, like where people are like, oh, he's lucky that. I just remember seeing Billy Jean. I was like, man, like, I can do this. Like, if this guy can do it, I can do it. Then Russell, and then I think recently the new 4-minute mile for me was like seeing Alex Becker and Alex Tramosi go from internet marketing and kind of pivot. And then Becker just sold for, I don't know if you heard,
100 mil?
He just sold like 110 mil or something, right? And it seemed like he's trying to keep it kind of hush hush, but I thought it was cool. And then, Mosey, I think he'll be a billionaire before 40. Maybe a little out, but I mean, definitely in the next 10 years. And so that's been cool too, because it's like what you said. It's weird how the human brain works, but as soon as you see someone else do it, you're like, oh,
It's doable.
okay. Yeah. It's like it raises the bar. And I think, to summarize, like it's the journey, right? I got so focused on the money that finally, once I had all the money, it kind of sucked because you realize you're just a smaller fish in a bigger pond.
Yeah.
You know, so I think Becker said it, and he has some quote. He's like, all you guys who talk about how rich you are, you're comparing yourself to like the poor people. He's like, look at this picture. And he shows it a New York apartment. It's like $100 million. And he's like, this is where the big guys play. And I think that's cool because at some point, I think if you can truly enjoy what you're doing on the journey and like the progress. So if you can become a billionaire, it's like the things you'd have to become to get there.
100%.
I think that really is the fulfillment, because the second you get it, it's like, what are you going to do? You're going to have one party, and then the next day you don't think now, but you'll say, well, what's next?
Yeah.
And that's how I felt literally after I had my first $1 million month. And it was depressing because I said, man, like I just worked so hard to get here and I'm not even happy.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's a great lesson, because it's always about your mission will keep you going. If you're always chasing the money, you will burn out. And I've gone through
100%,
through different
100%.
stages of it, of just like being, money in the bank, family taken care of, but like just so unfulfilled.
100%.
And it was like, and that was when I was running my own agency, doing a little bit of coaching, but working with attorneys and dentists and all these people that were not the people I wanted to be around. Nothing against you guys for listening, but it's like I was getting the big clients that were the the super wealthy, but also unhappy. That had dedicated their entire lives to their careers, and then also they were not having a vision for impact.
Yeah.
Now with working with helping people start their own businesses, they have dreams. They're good people to be around.
Yeah.
They want to have impact. They want to start nonprofits like we've done. They want to start giving back. It's like that is a lot, like more, I guess. That's a lot more push to like keep going because you're actually just seeing it in a different way.
Yeah, when things get hard. I think something that's been such a huge blessing for me is when I first started my business, my two first employees were my brothers, or team members, I should say. They probably prefer that. But
come on, bro.
Yeah,
come
my homies. Yeah, but it's funny. They didn't have any skills, but now, we're 5 years in. Both of my brothers are CEOs of different companies I own. And they're making way more now than they ever would have.
Yeah.
And so I kind of look at that. That's like what makes it fun. It's like you're seeing not only the impact you're having, but other people. And you got to get detached from the results. Cause like you said, I'm telling you, especially in Miami, where you think you're the big dog, I promise you I can introduce you to someone else who's bigger, and it's always going to happen. The only person who doesn't have to experience that is Elon.
Yeah.
So, lucky for him. But I just think for the rest of us, like you do have to find, it's got to be about the progress and the journey, because like, at least for me, I don't know how you are. I realize that ultimately more money, the only things it buys after a certain degree is cars, boats, jets, houses. It's like, there's nothing we really can't do with $1 to $2 million a year. Like you can pretty much do whatever you want.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I don't really even know friends who spend more than that. Some of my friends who are making literally, $30-50 million a year probably take home. I mean, they probably spend $1 to $2 million outside of those things. And
For
so,
sure.
That just can't be what motivates you, is like bigger house, because even when you get it 6 months later, at least for me, it gets old.
It's old.
It's old.
Yeah.
So,
but when you see transformation in somebody else's lives, like that continues to make you happy, brings you joy. Like I had a student walk up to me at this event and was like, bro, I bought into like one of your first programs and it changed my freaking life.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And I remembered his name because he was like one of the first couple hundred people into our first community that we had built. And I was like, Brandon?
Yeah.
I was like, dude, what have you been up to? He's like, man, I'm taking it to the next level and now I'm learning how to speak on stages. And he's like, you were that person that like got me to think differently. And he's like, and that like lit me up all day.
And it's important. I think it's important to remember that, because at least for me, you see that more and you're kind of like, oh yeah, like whatever. And then we focus on like the bad, so you get like 1 out of 100 people who like they get upset and your whole focus goes there. And then your team's like, hey, like we have like 99 people here who are super happy. It's like, it's just interesting how the human brain works sometimes.
Oh, big time. And especially just energetically, when we hear one negative comment or someone cuts us off or whatever the case may be, someone's like, oh, you're a fucking loser, whatever. It'll actually on a neurological level will take 9 positive experiences to reset your energy if you allow it to.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
So when you're in a negative work environment and everyone is bitching about whatever, and that's all you hear all day long, like you need a lot of positive reinforcement to like get you back to ground zero energetically.
Yeah. And that, that makes sense.
You'll bump into somebody at the mall or something, or at a restaurant's having a bad day, and you're just kind of like, oh, that was a weird vibe, and it kind of affects you for a little bit. So like when you start paying attention to these things, and you're looking at what are you compiling, like what's compiling up for you each day? You know, is it negativity? Is it people throwing negative stuff at you? It's like that's where you have to start navigating that and getting those people like out of your life, getting out of that situation, you know, getting around the people that truly care about you, that want to like, you know, move you further. And you know, a good friend of mine was like, yeah, your parents, for most of you, keep you poor. Your parents keep you in their upbringing because they're scared, right? Fear-based. I think what's really exciting about the power of the internet now and how much amazing free information is out there is like our consciousness has been able to shift into more of an abundant type mentality because we're in the informational age. Like you can get so much for health, mindset, finance, you name it. There are so many experts that have gotten out there and are sharing this wisdom, and it's shortening the gap for us to where, you know, growing up is like go out and get what you can and get what's yours, and you're gonna have to like climb up people's backs to get there. And it's like, no, that's not it. We've been doing it all wrong. You know?
It's different. It's actually crazy talking to my dad now, and just thinking about the internet. I mean, it hasn't been around that long.
No, we saw it.
YouTube,
yeah,
it's barely been around, and it's crazy. Like, I don't know. I bet like our ancestors look at us and they're laughing like, you guys are a bunch of idiots with your social media, but it's completely changed how you can make money. My dad, I mean, he's like, I mean, dude, I would love to have done what you did. It just wasn't around. Like it didn't exist.
Yeah.
So we're living in a very like privileged time where I don't think we even understand. Like it's crazy. I think the next like billionaires, the next generation of billionaires are going to be there's going to be obviously a spread, but I think like you're gonna see a lot of the Logan Pauls and the Mr. Beast and those guys become billionaires because just what social media and the internet is allowing them to do is insane.
Money follows attention.
Yeah,
money follows attention. That's the greatest asset you could have is attention, right? Because you look at these like these massive influencers that, because they have influence, became billionaires with their products, their shows, their this or that.
Without probably
zero ad spend for most of them.
I know. So pure profit. So because I don't know for your company, but I'd say like we're pretty aggressive. And so I'd say probably 60% of our expense is probably ads.
Oh,
or
for sure.
More. And on top of that, you know, you look at like a Mr. Beast or a Logan Paul and Jake Paul, and don't get me wrong, like those guys are probably smart. I mean, they're obviously at a very high level. They did something right. But, you know, you think about the way you built your business, and like to me, I'm like, man, they probably don't know more like about like operational side of like growing a business and marketing, but look how much better they're doing. And it just kind of goes to show it's a weird shift, because I used to think social media was so stupid. And the reason I did is in the beginning, I didn't have a following.
Yep.
And so I do think for 99% of people, the focus there is stupid. I really do believe that. But once you kind of get to that next level and you have some money, you realize, man, like if I could get that type of following, it would just accelerate everything. And with all, you know, all the ad spend that we spend, I mean, I just can't even imagine getting that much free traffic. Like I want to know what to do with it.
Seriously, when we're doing, you know,
I mean, and like they're just so like energy drinks, burgers, like just stuff that's no fulfillment. It's like just very low cost, very easy to fulfill. You know, you can grow very big. So
I mean, Mr. B is like a genius marketer. The way that he does his stuff is unbelievable. And again, like you said, on the whole operation side, ad spend, the guy probably doesn't know how to run ads whatsoever
at all.
But he's like, dude, I will go out and blow anybody out of the water with organic content. And like that was the move. And he's been doing it for a long time. It's consistency. And you see these people, I remember when they first like started their social medias and they're all talking about, like Gary Vee's talking about it, and you got
stick with them, man.
Yeah, you have to. And like and I didn't back then, but we stayed consistent with ads and different things.
Yeah.
And so anytime you want to get in and make a change in your life, whether it's growing organic content or getting in better shape or whatever, it's that consistency every single day. Like they interview people. How did you get 300 million views? It's like, I put out a video every day for 5 years
and didn't do anything.
That's how I got,
and it's the love for the process. And I think I keep seeing that because I went through like some, you know, pretty severe depression, or what I thought was, you know, that's what I say too, is like, it may not have been, I just was very sad, but you know, I went through that part where I said, man, like I have all this money. Why do I feel so sad? And then I really had to look inside and say, you know, why am I still working if I don't need to? Why does this matter? And for me, like I came to the conclusion in a simplistic form. I said, well, I just like it. I was like, I actually like this shit. And it was weird because at first you're so poor and you're so money hungry that you don't even realize you like what you're doing. You like the push. And so like Mr. Beast, he talks about, he's like, yeah, I just shoot videos like all day long. Like I just live here and like my girlfriend, like I barely see her that much and she's fine with it. And like Gary Vee, he does it all day long. And so if you're going to stick with something, right, the longer you can stick with something, the better the results. But to stick with it, I think you really have to love it and you can't fake it. And so it's almost like the same thing I used to say when I was competing and I was doing bodybuilding is you can't fake it, right? Like if someone's out of shape, you're like, you're obviously not working out. You're obviously not eating healthy. And so I think it's a longer timeline for business because,
Yeah.
you know, I can't look at you and say, man, you look like you worked hard today. I don't know.
Right.
But I think it's the same thing where the people who actually do the biggest things, they love it. Like I just look at Elon, I'm like, he has to love it.
He does.
He has to. And so I think a lot of people, they try to trick themselves into it. And I think if you're only after the money, that'll only push you so far until you burn out. And I mean, I went through it. Sounds like you went through it.
For sure.
So
for sure. And again, nowadays with the power of the internet, the power of being on stages, the power of podcasts, like you can literally get really passionate about what you want to do and you can go make a business out of it.
Yeah.
Like it can happen.
Anything.
Like at the Sages event, like we literally built a business in 15 minutes that would generate about $1.5 million a year.
Yeah.
From just being passionate about improving a system or improving in this case, it's like med spas. Like what makes the difference between a good one and a bad one? It's like some of them are comfy and amazing and like they treat you the right way. And so it's like you could literally build a 4-module training about how to treat people the right way, how to just have bottles of water. People are like, oh, you know, it costs so much money to put bottles of water in there. It's like, if I go to an establishment and I can't get a cold glass of water, I'm sitting there to wait for them to get their shit together. I'm already pissed. You talk about going to that steakhouse where you're sitting there for an hour,
man.
and you're like, I'm trying to give you guys $1,000 for a steak. Let me in the damn door.
Yeah.
You know, it's like shit like that. Like you see these breaks in systems and like, that's where people make money.
Just fix it.
Just fix it.
Yeah.
You see what it is. And if you're passionate about it, it can happen. And that's why on abundance.io, we talk about literally just going and leveraging platforms. We call it platform arbitrage. Yeah. So people are already renting houses on Airbnb, and there's people that have amazing houses that don't know how to take the photos. They don't know how to write the copy. They don't know how to optimize it. And you can go in there and be making 20% off of their property without owning it and make a shit ton of money.
Kind of run it for them and so forth. Yeah.
And like, and you understand hospitality. Like I used to bartend, and then I was a massage therapist, and then I was a waiter. And you learn how to talk to people. You learn hospitality. You learn how to look for these little things where you're like, huh, that person tipped me a lot more money because I was quicker.
Right.
The water was half full. So I always made sure it was all the way full. I didn't wait till I got to the bottom. It's like, you start to see these things. Yeah. It's like, go apply that to these other businesses and just make them better. Like so many people are like, I have this amazing idea when I create this product that doesn't exist. And I don't have any marketing, and I don't have any brand awareness. I don't have a product market fit. And then they want to go get $100,000 loan and then go start this business. That's why 98% of businesses fail.
I look at Shark Tank and I'm like, the only winners on there are the sharks. Like I will be the shark. I was like, all these other people, in my opinion, they're losing because a lot of times the businesses sometimes when they're asking for the money, I'm so perplexed.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, you're giving up 50% of your business for 50 grand.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just perplexing to me because I just feel there's so many easier ways to make money, especially without products to start. Like I'm not against products. I just think, you know, I look back at the first business I built and I just like, sometimes I see those deals and I'm like, man, there's easier ways to build a business. I think people, they overcomplicate it.
For sure.
Like they way overcomplicate. It's like, make something, go sell it. Yeah. That's it. It's not like you have a business.
You need to dedicate all of your energy on finding customers. Yeah. People are like, oh, my business card isn't quite right. And my logo needs to be adjusted. Like, no one cares about your logo.
Yeah. Or
like,
just doing too many things. Like I had a discussion with a sweet lady the other day and, you know, she's asked me her advice and, you know, I'm like, you just told me you had 6 programs. I think you have more stuff than I do.
Yeah.
You know, and she's barely starting. So just keeping stuff super simple, something that's, you know, and I look at like low risk, low cost, like the total opposite. Like you don't need to go out and take these massive swings to start.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the people are taking the massive swings, it's not their money, it's venture capital's money. And so, you know, if you got to bootstrap it, the last thing I think you need to do is like, you don't have to go out and spend money. Like I built my entire companies, all of them are completely bootstrapped.
Yep.
And it's funny because when the recession hits, I've talked to a bunch of VCs. They're going to start looking for entrepreneurs. It's coming back, right? It's coming back. They're going to look for entrepreneurs who can bootstrap companies because all these companies are not making any money.
Totally.
I mean, I hear these valuations and it's crazy, but they'll tell me the valuation. I'm like, well, how much profit does it do? All right. Oh, well, it's running at a negative $1 million a month.
It's mind blowing.
It mind blows me because we're just so used to bootstrapping stuff.
And like having huge returns monthly.
Yeah, but I guess it's just how the game works. But it's crazy because they don't, you know, if they don't sell, they don't get anything. pretty much because they're running negative. So anyways, it's totally different game, totally a little off topic, but it's just interesting.
No, for sure. And like, that's the whole point of the Abundance podcast and our platform is really just like showing people how to be creative and going out there and making money with like low to no money down.
Yeah.
And being able to have the highest success rate of being successful. And that's what you did with your business coming out of the gate. You're like, listen, I have value. I know how to help these other people that were you coaching?
Yeah. So just getting them in shape. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
So you started with coaching and then eventually started coaching other people that wanted to
yeah.
grow their
And,
business
and
as
like,
well.
it's funny because I never thought I'd get into that. I actually, I mean, I would talk so much shit about like business coaches, like, man, this guy and that guy. But it's funny when you become successful, it's like, as you make more money, it gets easier to make more money. And it's like, it should be backwards, right? It should be easier and then it gets harder. But as you're successful and people see that, they start asking you for help and then more opportunities open up. And then you meet more people and then they want to do things with you. And then you have money to actually invest in things. And now you're making passive income. It's that was kind of how I started. So, I just think most trainers specifically, they're just broke. I mean, I was broke as shit. And I would see, I go to Mr. Olympia, they're doing it this weekend. And I go there and I'm jacked and I'm freaking, eating chicken broccoli every day and I'm shredded and I was broke. And it just, it was so frustrating to me to be like, how do you make money in this industry? And a lot of the guys, they don't.
Yeah.
And that's the sad part. The guys who really make the money is like they use and leverage their bodies and their brand to then go off and sell something. Right. But I thought it was like, oh, I'm going to get a sponsorship and I'm going to be rich. But it just, I was a young kid and I didn't know any better, but that was really the only way I saw how I could stay in the fitness industry and become wealthy. Cause I didn't want to work at a gym. And I sure as hell, like, didn't want to just, like do modeling, all this stuff. And like, all that there's other stuff I could tell you about that I did that super embarrassing now, but like it just wasn't the path to go down.
For sure. Well, and business consulting has changed.
Yeah,
right?
I think so.
Big time. Where I didn't go to school for marketing. I didn't go to school for consulting.
Same.
And you didn't either. But we just learned how to scale our own businesses. And now when we consult or do equity share deals or whatever, it's like they're coming to us. They're not going to these consultants that are 50 years old that consulted these business back before the internet was created.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's changed a lot. It's like the value that you can actually bring to a company. And this is what we teach our students through the marketing component of it. It's like you are the bloodline in their business. When you can bring them sales automated by flipping a switch and turning on the software, it's like that is the consulting that these businesses need. Same with the people that are coming to you. They're like, how do I grow my business? We run more ads. We write better copy. We create VSLs. Like these old school guys, like do not get that are in traditional consulting. Like we got to really, increase the bottom line and we need to, we need middle management and like all this other shit. And you're just like, it's evolving so fast. And that's like when people go to college, by the time you get out of college, the world has evolved so far.
You just don't need it.
That even in a lot of these industries, people are graduating and cannot get a job because they don't have the qualifications.
Yeah, to each their own. I think college was a complete waste. And there was two reasons. The first was I remember taking a physics class and I was studying my ass off. And I was always the guy who, had friends who could just show up and get A's. I could get A's, but I had to study. And so I was studying my ass off and I had a C and I was like, I don't want this on my, resume or what do you even call them? Degrees.
Right.
I don't even remember getting in college anymore. So
I never went, so I don't know.
So a degree. And so I dropped out because you get like 5 dropouts. And the only reason you do it is so you can retake it to get a better grade.
Right.
And I remember I got a different teacher. I went on this website. I can't remember what it's called anymore, but it rates professors. And he was highly rated. And I took his class and I got a 98. And I was like, this is complete bullshit. I took the same class, but this guy, all he did is he graded a little easier. So it was a 10-question test every time. And it was 10 points a piece. And my first professor, he's like, 2 questions, like a little bit off, he'd give me 10 points off. And then this other guy, like I get a little bit wrong, he's like 3 points or like 2 points. And I was like, man, that's such bullshit.
Yeah.
Like I was like, this is literally a game. Like, and someone wants me to get a piece of paper that says I know something, but it literally is dependent on where I go to school and who my teacher is. That doesn't seem fair.
And how much are you using that information
like
in your business?
Like zero. And that's the thing. So I do believe like if you need the degree for something you want to do, great. But it's just like I have not one time. We have 90 plus people on my team right now. I don't think I've asked anyone for their resume or degree, excuse me. Their resume, yes, but their degree, I don't care. And I don't care if they've graduated. I'm simply looking, do you have experience doing what I need you to do? That's it.
Yeah.
I don't see I guess the only value is if they can finish, you're like, hey, they can do a hard thing.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't seem to make sense. Like there's just so many other things you could be doing now that will make you more valuable.
For sure. No doubt. We need our doctors and we need our trainees people. If that's what you want to do, please do that because I want to show up to a hospital and have a doctor.
Agree. Yeah. Like if you need the degree, do it 100%.
But I like what you said about like the hiring because the hiring process has changed as well. Like we hire people that have like characteristics. Like, are you fun to be around? Are you hungry? Like, do I enjoy, like if you're going to be in our organization for the next 5 years, 10 years, and we're going on these retreats and having all this fun together, like I don't want to hire a bummer. Like
no,
that's definitely
100%
a big one.
Yeah.
And like, do you have a long-term vision? Do you want to grow with us? Because we do equity payouts for like our employees based on like what they're contributing. And are we all contributing to profit, not just revenue?
Right.
It's like you said, a lot of these companies, these tech companies are running $1 million negative every month. It's like, if you want to help us grow and you're contributing and you're evolving your part of this company, great. You're going to get incentivized to do that. And that's, again, thinking outside of the traditional hierarchy of the corporate world, these big tech companies. Like you come in and you serve the next level and you serve the next level. It's like, no, us as entrepreneurs and leaders now, that thing is flipped upside down. I serve all of my people. And that's what allows us to grow, which again is going against the grain, breaking out of the traditional system.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I like what you do with your team there. I think for us, what we look at the most, I actually got roasted on this the other day, but I tell people, I said, this may be incorrect, but this is my feeling. If they start asking about work-life balance and vacation days on the interview, I don't want them on the team.
Yeah.
Because it's the totally wrong mindset, right? Like they're looking at how little can I do to get paid what you want me to what I want to get paid. And I want someone who's like, how much more can I do? How much more can I help? And it's interesting because a lot of people, they look at hard work like it's a bad thing or it's taboo or you need work-life balance. But the reality is like for my executives, you'll make more money with me easier just working a few more hours a day if that's what it takes, right? Than going off and doing your own thing. And people forget that. If you run your own business, you're wearing 8-10 hats, especially if you're doing under like 100K a month. I'll see people, they're like, oh, I do 20K a month profit. And I'm like, and you work more than I do. And you're stressed out and you hate it. And you're not good at a lot of things. So that's actually for us, we look for proactivity, competitive greatness, and integrity. And like for me, I'm not saying you have to work 12 hours, like you must work 12 hours. But what I ask them is that, are you willing? Like, are you willing to work 10 to 12 hour days?
Step up.
Yeah, because like if you're the clock in, clock out, 9 o'clock, 5 o'clock, and you clock out, it's just not, I just don't resonate. Like I don't resonate because I've worked so long for so hard.
Yep.
I can't remember the last time I stopped working before 7 o'clock minimum. Like that's just normal for me. I'm like, oh, 7 o'clock. All right. Like I'll call it early today instead of 8 or 9.
Right.
And I just love what I do. And I think you can find people like that. I think a lot
have the grit.
Yeah. Like I think a lot of business owners, they go like, I've had even my COO says this and I love him. He's a beast, but he goes, Tanner, you can't expect them to be the business owner. And I'm like, yeah, maybe not, but I sure as hell don't have to let someone in who doesn't fit our standards. And you just have to be willing to hold out. It's like anything. It's like
for sure.
People treat, people on their team as if it's like the first girl on Tinder that swipes right. I'm like, you're not just going to marry the first girl you date, right? Like you're going to go through and date a couple girls. I think it's the same thing for hiring. And you just have to be willing to hold out for what the business needs and not just like, oh, this person doesn't want to do it, so they're good enough, we'll just kind of lower our standards. I think that's the total wrong way to go.
Oh, for sure.
100%.
No, I agree. And especially right now too, with the atmosphere that a lot of, the businesses like we run is like, it is very, free flowing. It's like you can work from home. Do you guys have an office or do you have people?
No, so right now, I mean, all remote. Yeah. All remote. And sometimes I kind of wish we did.
Yeah.
But just at this point, I'm like, I think the amount of effort and work it would take to do that, I don't know if it's worth it.
Well, yeah, you got a lot of overhead, like we're talking about overhead and the coffee breaks and yada, yada, yada. And we got to do the lunches and these things. It's like the way that we can operate so lean with an internet business is so awesome.
Super lean.
But also going back to what you're saying, it's like, hiring the people that are going to step up. But it's like, I don't care when you work, but we set in these new metrics inside of our companies. Like if you're hitting your goals and for some reason you want to work 9 p.m. till 1 a.m, that's like your flow state and you crush it and you're continuing to evolve your day. Amazing. Go for it. Like that's fantastic. As long as you're hitting your mark, and as long as you're hitting your marks in congruence with the rest of the team, we're all good there. If that takes you 80 hours a week, that takes you 80 hours a week. You're going to get better at it. If that takes you 30 hours a week.
Yeah, it's just
great.
You work until it's done, not when you want to quit. And I would say like, I like that. Obviously like I'm assuming like not the client facing positions.
No.
Cause like 9 to 5, like it's like, you can't ask your client, hey, I want to work at 1 a.m. But no, I agree with that sentiment. And that's more of what I was trying to say the other day. I don't personally care if like people get mad. It's like I think like being opinionated is powerful.
No,
I think
you
like
have to
sticking
be.
with it.
If everybody likes you, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, 100%. But I definitely think you want to find people who they just love doing a good job. They take pride in their work, and it's just you just know the difference. You see someone who puts in 10 hours here and 10 hours here, and this person you're like, what is this thing?
Mm-hmm.
And this person, it's just amazing. And they're like, what else can I do? What else can I do? I'm like, that's the attitude of like people you want to like raise in your company. That's what I look for.
For sure. And definitely like we started hiring A players and paying more because we knew if we hired the B and the C players, and in the long term, we're going to end up paying more.
Right.
We're not getting as good of commissions. We're not supporting our customers in the best way. So we're getting, it really starts to like add up over time, which I know that you're definitely a firm believer in that for sure.
Yeah, it's it's funny. I made a post the other day, and I genuinely only think one competitor we've had in the last 5 years is still around. That's like big, and when I say big, like at least $1 million a month. Right? Yeah. There might be someone there who I don't know, but I find that interesting because when you first start the company, and I'm guilty of this too. So I'm guilty of this too. But when you first start, you're so just any little thing that's going to increase profit, you're like, do this. And then you realize that it's such a long game that if you do stuff at the detriment of others, eventually it does come back around.
For sure.
And so I think a lot of the people who dropped out either A, weren't that profitable, right? So they're like, it's not really worth it. Or B, they didn't do like the hard things like building an actual team and putting in management and doing a great service, because ultimately a lot of internet marketing companies, it's, churn and burn. I mean, they are churning and burning like crazy. And so we've spent a ton of time to really get a massive amount of, upgrades and re-signs and, cross-pollination or other offers. And I think you have to, because, service is harder, right? So, you shouldn't have the same expectations for, attrition or churn as like a tech company, but, we shoot for 10%. And I think the average in the industry is 30% or more. And so if you can get it at least to that, your business will just be so much better for it. And you don't put so much pressure on constantly making sales each and every month.
Yeah, no doubt. So let's rewind a little bit back to when you first got started. Let's say you have the information that you have now.
Yeah.
Talking back to your younger self when you're first getting started with a business and you're still trying to figure it out, like what would you tell that younger Tanner?
Oh man, don't be a little, that's probably what I would have said.
Quit being a wuss.
Yeah. It's funny. So the way I was raised and I grew up, I basically kind of willed my way to kind of what I felt was success at the time. So, I got bullied a lot as a kid. I was kind of strange. My dad's very conservative, very religious, and I had 2 older sisters. So, tea parties, dresses didn't really help me. Right. So I get to school and I made fun of a lot. I'm bullied. And so I started working out because I wanted to beat kids up. And because I'm 12, I started getting a lot of muscles. And, I'm the only kid in the school that has muscles. And I just remember the instant respect. I was like, oh shit, like this feels good. And so that was I still to this day think that's one of the most pivotal points of my life, because every time I worked hard with grades, I got A's. I was like, oh. And then like I would like, keep working at talking to girls, and then girls would like me. I'm like, man, like if I work hard, I get results. The downside of that is at 22 is I was so egotistical because of my success that I felt like I did this on my own. Like no one helped me, that I was so unwilling to get help because I felt like I would just figured out that I wasted 2 to 3 years. And, I played sports, so I really couldn't start a business till I was 22, 23, because that was my life. Like I wanted to play in the NFL. And so I didn't even really think about business until that was over. But if I could go back in time, I just would have said, dude, like get help. Yeah. Like it's just ego. It's just ego. Like if you're not where you want to be, someone else is there. You have to be willing to humble yourself. And I think as I've made more money, I'm actually more humble. Like I have confidence, right? And it may come off as arrogance to people who don't know me, but it's just confidence. But I'm humble enough to know the more I learn, the more I make, the less I actually realize I know. And I think a lot of wealthy and smart people understand that. I think the dumbest people think they know the most.
For sure.
Is what I've seen.
100%. Wow, that was really insightful, because it is when you start to open up your mind, your business gets bigger, you get in better shape, you're thinking clearer, like you have more time to do research, you have more time to listen to other people. You're like, man, when I thought I had this thing figured out, I realized like there is still a lot to learn. And I really think when it comes to growing your finances, if your bank account's not where you want it to be, it's because A, you're not putting enough value into the world. So you need to get that figured out. And then B, you have limiting beliefs that are not allowing you to get you to that next level, which in most cases, and that was for me too, is like, I thought I knew everything, wasn't going to school. Nobody knew how to like tell me what to do. And I became like very off-putting and really just closed my ears and put my head down.
Mm-hmm.
And then after 4 years of really struggling and going through different,
Oh, it humbles you.
oh, you're like, oh shit, actually,
Right.
I don't know
My way isn't working.
And my way's not working. And you know, that guy was right. And I took that challenge as not something to challenge me, but to push me down.
Yeah.
And learn to turn that around where when people would give me advice or challenge me, I was like, okay, I'm taking it on because I see where you're at and I want to get to where you're at.
Well, and it's funny too. This saying, right? They say like when you want to be as successful as you want to breathe. Like I think the story where the guy goes in the water with the teacher and the teacher pushes him under the water, right? And he's like, I want to be successful. I think I hit that point, and it's really hard to manufacture. It's really hard to manufacture. It's like a playoff game. You know, it's where someone's like, oh, treat it like a playoff game. And it's like, yeah, but it's a scrimmage, coach. Like, I'll try, but like, it's just hard. But I think for me, when I turned 25, I genuinely remember I was like, dude, I would rather be homeless than like be a loser. Like, I just felt like I was at the bottom of the bottom. I just felt like so like low about myself. And like, cause I felt like when you're a football player, especially when you're playing Division I mean, you're a god, right? Especially in Texas, like even in high school, you're a god. They just look at you as like, wow. And then I just remember when that was over, they're just like, oh, okay. Bye. And it's like, it's like this identity, like just gets stripped from you. And I know a lot of athletes deal with it
for sure.
And so that to me is like, I think a lot of people, they just don't want it as bad as they say. And you might just have to go through, like you have to hit the bottom.
Yeah.
To like get there. And for me, it was just that when I turned 25 and I just felt like I was old.
Yeah.
And I just said, man, I'll be homeless before like I give up. And that was when things changed.
Big
when
time.
you just like burn the ships and you just decide that you're going to make it happen.
You have to just remove failure off the table. That's what I had to do. Like quit all the jobs, you know, everything.
Yeah,
like, I'm
you
all
have these
in.
crutches.
Yeah.
And the thing is like, even if you say it's not a crutch, like, you know,
it
in the back, it is.
It is. Out of
And it
fear,
slows
out
you
of
down.
scarcity mindset, you hold on to that job. You keep working that remote, you know, sales job while you're trying to build your company.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of people went into, you know, got to work from home, even though they're working for tech or corporate or whatever. And then they're like kind of trying to start this entrepreneurial thing. Like I had a lot of my students doing it that were in the center circle. And I said, all of you, you're already making money. If you actually want to get your goals, quit your job right now. You have to go all in. You have to go all in. I'm like, success leaves clues. Listen to Tanner on this podcast right now. You had to go all in.
Mm-hmm.
The guys I interviewed today, I had to go all in. That's where I really got there because that job is keeping you poor. That safety is keeping you poor. That safety is keeping you in fear state. And as long as you're there, you're not going to have the time, the energy, the resources to go meet with the people that you need to that are going to help you make that quantum leap. You're not going to have the time to really put into your business because people talk about money and resources, money and time, are your most valuable resources. I disagree. It's brain power. And you only get 3 to 4 hours of that a day. And you were talking about that. It's like, you want to come home late at night at 8 o'clock, start working on your business?
It doesn't work. I tried it that way. And that's what changed my mind because I realized I just said, I'm too tired to put any real effort, right? Real effort, like where you can actually think and make things happen. And even like in, you know, a service-based business, you know, you got to reach out to people, you got to do sales calls. So it's like, when are you going to do the reach out? When are you going to do the sales calls? It just doesn't really work. And so I think, to your point, I tell people make as little as humanly possible to just scrape by and then put all your other time into the business. Because especially if you're single, because when you get older, I remember my mentor said it and I didn't, you know, really understand the time. He says, you know what, if you get that job and you start making $100,000 a year and you meet a girl and you tell her you're going to start a business, he's like, you're done. Because he's like, she's not going to support you going backwards. He's like, you do it now or you don't do it at all. And I don't know why, but I just remember that being so impactful for me. And now that I'm older, I was like, dude, that was such good advice. Because like, I even picture my girlfriend now and she's an entrepreneur and I'm like, hey, like, so we're going to change our lifestyle like 180 degrees. I still think she'd be like, oh, like,
no, like it's pretty good, babe.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, it's just so interesting to see that. I think as you get older and you have kids and you're an adult, like my heart goes out to people because you just have more responsibility.
Yeah.
Like, and so you can't be quite as selfish because you can't say, like, you could say, I'll be homeless, but then like you don't want your kids to be homeless, right? Or your wife or your girlfriend. Yeah. So I think that's like for young guys out there listening to this or girls, like be super reckless in your young age because you can always get a
You can.
job. And that's the thing
Yeah.
too. It's like, what's the scariest thing that, I don't know if you've read it, but the book, it's called Who Moved My Cheese.
Mm-mm.
It's a good book, but long story short, it's about three mice and they're in a maze and food gets dropped off every day. And, one day the food's not there. And the whole book is about this argument where two of the mice stay because they're so scared to go off to, find other food because they're like, well, what if it comes back?
Mm-hmm.
And the other mouse is like, hey, like, guys, it's been 3 years. We're going to die.
Yeah.
And he goes off and actually finds food. But the point is, what's the worst thing that can happen? If you stay, you're dead. If you go off and you don't find food, you're dead. So wouldn't you rather at least give yourself a second option? And
For sure.
think it's so interesting to see humans do that, but we do it all the time.
Oh, yeah.
All the time.
And especially because, when you're in your later teens, 18, 19, 20, and then like your early 20s, you will have more energy in those years than you will the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And luckily,
100%.
I started to figure it out there. And like, that's your prince phase. Like, that is when you are
Yeah.
building your kingdom. So
Yeah.
in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, you are in your king phase where you start raising your family and start doing those things. You can be a present father. You can be a present partner, right? And because I remember my relationship at the time when I was building, they were not all that healthy because everything was going in. And so even people, if you're older than that, you still need to like just get those 5 years that you're going to set aside as like, this is the years I'm going to build and just go.
And
like,
just grind.
Like when you talk about giving up stuff, I was like, I gave up drinking, I gave up going out, I gave up hanging out with friends.
Yeah.
I gave up all that because I was creating a business that I didn't have anybody's feet really to like follow in, and like you were kind of the same thing. Like you met one guy that was like, okay, do this, but there wasn't like a big community. There wasn't what we have now, especially with abundance, where there's, 20,000 people that can all coach and help each other.
Yeah.
And like, this is what I've done wrong. And it's like, it's a lot easier to plug in now. And same with people plugging into yours. So we've been able to shorten that gap to where what took me 10 years to build, I'm helping people do in a couple of years. So
right.
Putting people down that are already past those times. But man, if you're single and you're in your 20s and you are not building a business, like you're missing the boat.
Yeah. And like, to be fair, if you don't want to build a business, then
All
like
good.
get in a business and like learn skills that will make you valuable.
For
because
sure.
I even look now and I said, what is the worst thing that could happen? Like, let's say all my businesses shut down, or like, I don't know, they all burn to the ground. Even with sales, like what I could go easily make at least like $250,000 a year just doing sales over the phone.
Yeah.
And that's like the lowest I can think of. And it's probably like, I probably think of something else I could do even besides that.
Yeah.
So I just think if you can go and learn those valuable skills, I mean, they're infinitely valuable to my company. Like there's people in my company that are very like infinitely valuable.
Yep.
Where like, if they left, I mean, we would survive and move on, but it would just suck. I mean, it'd be terrible. And so, there's a lot of things you can do where I just think you can just go out and just learn skills and you don't need a degree. Like even coders, like if you're a coder and you can build tech and you can help tech companies, you can make a ton of money. A ton. And so I just think it's interesting now is like, instead of thinking, what do I go to school for? It's like, what skills do I have interest in, or how much money can I make if I learn them? Go learn those skills and then you apply. And guys like me will find you, and we won't ask if you got a degree. I won't. Yep. I mean, I could care less personally. I just could care less. I mean, I'm not against it. It's not a bad thing, but it's not going to push you over the edge.
For sure.
So,
and there are a lot of great companies, a lot of people in our industry that are really fun, amazing places to work at. We got 150 employees with Abundance, and we go on trips and we have fun, and like people are bringing real skills to the table. Yeah. It's like there's a lot of those opportunities out there. So like, if you don't want to be an entrepreneur and you don't want to start your own business, like go work for companies that are doing good in the world, that treat you well, that you really enjoy being at. Because life is short. It is short. You don't have all the time in the world. It's not young, take a break, whatever.
Yeah, there's just, I agree. It's just like, find something, because I look for those people too, and so I think there's a lot of great opportunities out there where you don't have to go and do a job like you hate or you're forced into school. Like you just find a skill that's deemed valuable by the marketplace. And there's people like you and me that will definitely hire those people. I mean, I'm looking for good talent all the time.
100%. 100%. We're always growing, always wanting to have impact, always giving back. And for those of you that, want to get into growing a business but you don't know where to start yet either, it's like, if you haven't been in a sales position, I got in like a couple like really terrible call centers when I was younger that like taught me really bad sales, but just getting on the phone with strangers and talking and learn how to communicate and learn how to listen. And like, if you haven't got a sales job, I would say go get one and learned how to communicate. Communication is the best skill you could ever learn. And so many people are scared about that because we don't learn about it in school.
Yeah.
Go do door-to-door sales.
Door-to-door was the best experience I ever had. Well, it was the worst, but it was the best.
Yeah.
And the reason
it was the worst because
because
it was the best.
well, so the reason it was the worst is it was 10 to 12-hour days, 6 days a week. So, I mean, you would get up, because I get up around 6, I go to the gym, then we'd have like our little meetings, then we'd drive out to area. Area would usually be out 1 to 2 hours because, we would pick these kind of pockets in Alabama where, a little less protected, kind of like there wasn't a lot around. So, they're more prone to buy the systems that we were selling. And then by the time we get back, it's 10 o'clock. And I mean, it's 100+ degree heat, crazy amounts of humidity. I mean, I had knives pulled on me, guns pulled on me, cops called on me. I remember the cops would always be like, "Why are you here?" I'm like, "Oh man, there's a lot of crime here. I'm trying to sell alarms."
Right.
But it was crazy because, there's so many excuses they can use. So a lot of times, at least, in a service-based business or in a lot of businesses, you can frame the conversation, right? Application, they opted in, you can, have a setter call, you can do all these things.
Right.
Door to door, I mean, you knock on the door, they can say anything and you can't really go against it because
or follow up.
I wasn't expecting you. My dog died. My cat died. Got to feed my fish. Just walking out the door. My wife's not home. My husband's not home. Kids need me. Like, there's just so many objections.
Yeah.
So I went through that for 8 months. And I was like, man, like, how do people do this forever? And then I go, oh, so there's warm leads. And I started doing, phone sales. I'm like, man, this is a joke.
Yeah.
Like, it's so much easier. So I think, even if you could just commit to 3 to 6 months, just go hard and go, just go up to Utah. Like, there's a million security companies up there. I worked for one called Alder. And then there's another one called Vivint that I know off the top of my head. Just sign up. It's commission based. And just look at it as a college education. That was the best sales class I ever took. When I came back and did phone sales, I mean, I just remember, like, I closed my first deal. I think I was like in my boxers on the couch, and I'm like, this is a joke.
Yeah.
Like an absolute joke. And I couldn't believe people complained about it because I just killed myself for like 8 months.
For sure. You put in the work, you did the reps. So like when it came to that, you're like, boom, I got this.
Yeah.
I know, like, our sales guys would come in where they had to even go get their leads even from like cold calling. And then they get there and it's like, oh, they're warm, they're edified. You got setters.
So
like,
much more
dude,
appreciated.
like,
So
this is
they appreciate it so much more.
I think really just to bring the conversation back around to things that you did as far as like, time management, mindset, like the things that you did that allowed you to spend more time on your business, and then the things that kept you going when like when shit was rough.
Yeah, so like time management and mindset. So in terms of time management, I just focused on what was going to move the business forward, which is sales, right? Because as I started making money, I realized, okay, the only way for me to get to the next level is I have to hire people, but to hire people, I have to make more money. So, I mean, I literally just spent as much time as humanly possible on sales, and I actually spent as little time in fulfillment as I could. I delivered the service, but I'll just be honest, like it wasn't like probably 5-star rating. It was probably like, yeah, this is a good service. This is a 3.5, 4-star. Like it's commendable. It's what I paid for. And so I spent all my days like pretty much messaging people, getting on sales calls until I could hire people. And I did it to the point where I started getting some arthritis in my fingers. The doctors were like, dude, what are you like doing? And I was like, yeah, like I sit here all day with like this with my thumbs. But that's just the truth. I just got up and I just worked and I worked and I worked as much as I could. And I could have done it slower. I want people to know who are watching, like I could have done it slower, but I just was running away from pain as fast as I could. And I didn't want it to be slow. I was like, you know what? Instead of ripping the Band-Aid off like this, I'm just going to pull it off. So that was number one. In terms of mindset, I don't know. This may be controversial. Maybe it's not. I just felt like I just ignored my feelings a lot. And, I'm sure people can debate if that's healthy, unhealthy, et cetera. I just feel for me, a lot of times, like people, they worry a lot about how they feel. And they wake up and like, well, I don't feel like working out, or that seems unfair. Or like, this person seems lucky, or they screwed me, or like, I deserve more time with my family. And, the reality is, in terms of a business, speaking financially, like it doesn't really care.
Yep.
You just do or you don't, you get it or you do not. And so I just say, you know what, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get the business to this level because that's the most important thing to me. And I'm not saying it has to be.
Right.
But for me, I didn't really worry too much about how I felt because it was irrelevant. That's how I looked at it. I just said, this is my goal. So I either get this many sales calls and I get this many messages and I make this much money, or I don't. And so I can sit, and cry and complain and moan and whine about how hard it is and how unfair it is and how I deserve a break, or I'll just do it. And that for me is a more helpful mindset than, trying to justify like why I should get more breaks or, doing, XYZ. I'll also just add in, I'm not against like if you want to meditate and you want to do mindset, all that, that's fine. But then you have to look at like that's more time that you're not working. And at the end of the day, if you could put in, 12 to 16 hours of work versus someone who does 8, as long as it's all productive, right? Of course, you're going to get more done. You're going to get farther ahead. And so I just tried to spend as much time as I humanly could working. And I knew it was going to be painful. I knew it was going to be inconvenient. And I just tried to push my feelings aside because I just think like that's a weak way to live your life where you do everything based on how you feel.
Yeah, because business, sales, like it doesn't have feelings. It doesn't have emotion. Money does not have emotion. Like you're either making it or you're not.
Yeah. And I just think like it's not a great way to lead because you're going to have moments when you don't feel like doing stuff. And I think that's one of the things I pride myself on is I do what I'm supposed to do no matter what. And when you do that, you can hold your team to a mega high standard.
For sure, because they're going to follow what you're doing.
Yeah, and I feel like my team respects me in that sense because I ask them to go really hard, but they know I'm going harder than anyone. And I just think like if you expect greatness of people, then you have to expect it in yourself. And, like David Goggins' book, I'll wrap up on this, but like that book, Can't Hurt Me. I don't agree with what he's doing. Like, I don't want to go and run 100-mile race in my feet in the desert. Right. But the concept, right. But the concept is spot on where he goes, you don't realize like how far you can really go. And I think so many people, they think they're 100%. It's like 60.
Yep.
Like you're not even anywhere near your human potential. And so I think if you can break through those barriers and not like feel sorry for yourself and make excuses, when you get to the end, what happens is your baseline actually resets. So if you think this is your baseline and you push through, you get here and you're like, all of a sudden your body and your mind is like, oh yeah, like, well, this is what Tanner's going to do. So we just have to raise to his level versus the other way around with most humans. They think is like, oh, I don't feel good. So like, I'm just going to take time off. And, just as impressive as the mind and body are, it's also like, the opposite. Like if you don't work out for a week, you start to atrophy, right? If you don't like work out your brain or like you take a break, every time it happens, it's like, oh, let's just take a break again. Let's just I don't know. So I just really try to stay in one direction that way. And I try not to make excuses and I try to ignore my feelings in terms of my work because the business doesn't care. It just doesn't. It's like you do or you don't. And that may not work for some people, but it's been very helpful for me.
We're seeing those times when, oh, I don't feel like doing it. Just imagine if you could trick your brain to where anytime you thought about that, you just went twice as hard. You're like, oh, I don't feel like doing it, but I'm just going to go twice as hard. Like it's all the way we perceive it. You know what I mean? Because you talk about like the baseline, and that's what I love about cold water therapy, or like I do a lot of mountain climbing. It's like that is a feat that I don't know if I can make it. And especially with people with cold water. They're like, oh, I'm going to get hypothermia from the water for 5 minutes.
Yeah, come on.
Oh, I'm going to die if I'm in there for 10 minutes. You can be in like 34-degree water for up to like 30 minutes before you even start the first phase of hypothermia.
Yeah.
So what happens is people freak out. And what happens is they actually like, because they're breathing and not breathing and their mind goes crazy, they actually force themselves into hypothermia when they actually wouldn't.
Right.
So like with cold therapy, it's like you're raising that bar where you get in, this is terrible. This is amazing. It's not good for me. Breath work, if you hold your breath, you're going to be like killing your brain cells. Like all this stuff is just shit we make up. But like when you push that and you're like, our mind actually limits us from getting things done physically, in business, whatever it may be. Yeah. It's like people say you can't climb Everest without oxygen. There's been multiple people that have done it.
Yeah.
It's like that 4-minute mile again. It's like, no, if this is your new baseline, look at where you can go. And so many of us put in those false baselines that you just hold us. It becomes a ceiling instead of like our next launch point.
Yeah. Like I feel like anyone watching, if they haven't read that book, like Can't Hurt Me, it's like, it's the perfect book because it just talks, that's what the whole book's about.
Yeah.
And David Goggins obviously is a very extreme example physically.
Yeah.
But if you can take that and put it into business or dance or sing, whatever it is you want, the concepts are the same. And I love how he thinks, because I just think it's like anytime you can empower yourself where you're in control, that's where you want to be.
That's freedom.
You don't want to be in a place where, oh, well, like this is how it is. And, this medication, this, and I'm not saying one thing, one way or the other about what people do or choose to do, but I just like, for me personally, I like keeping control.
Yep.
And because when you don't have control, it's like, well, you're helpless.
You're like a ping pong ball.
Yeah. What can you do? And you can't control everything, but I think just knowing you can control yourself,
your emotions, your mindset, your diet.
That's what makes me feel like I can get to wherever I want versus like, oh, it's not possible, it can't happen, because I just don't think that's a helpful thought.
For sure. It's like, because when you do take control of your life, yes, not everything is in control, but the things that you can control allow you to have more access to control and better sleep and like keeping things at bay and like
Right.
hiring people to help you with these other things. Right. And that's really where it comes from, is like once you actually set those things in your mind, it can become a reality, and you can have those days where it's like, I don't have stressful days anymore because I've allowed to go through it to where I don't allow it to affect me in that way, because I've been through the shit. Right.
Mhm.
You have as well as like the mindset gets stronger, the body gets stronger, the finances get stronger, your team gets stronger, your relationships get stronger. Like you said, it's the same concept, and you just keep applying that to all aspects of your life. Before you know it, you're like, wow, like I changed a lot in a very short amount of time.
Mm-hmm. No, and I love that. And I think that's the right way to think about it.
So, man, it's been awesome to have you on the show. I know we both are very busy human beings. We're both like, okay, we know we got the next show going on. But before we hop off, what does the word abundance mean to you?
Man, that's a great question. For me, that word specifically is, understanding that you succeeding or you doing well doesn't mean someone else can't. And I really used to think that, and I was very competitive, where if I had a competitor, I'm like, well, if he's doing well, that means he's taking sales out of my mouth. But the reality is, actually, as I, expanded and I did more, is you realize, like, especially money, right? Like the government just prints it.
Yeah.
Like there's basically there's infinite amount of money. If they run out, they just print more, which is part of why we have the problem we have. And so you doing well or you succeeding or you helping other people has no bearing on someone else. Like
sure.
it's not like this like pie that like once it's gone, it's gone. It's almost like I almost like feel like it just keeps going like this. And then it's just like, if you don't get your portion, it just goes to someone else.
Right.
And so that really to me is like, I don't know if that was the best definition, but it's just understanding that you doing well and succeeding, or you having financial success, or physical success, et cetera, it doesn't take away from anyone else. And I think that's like just a more positive mindset to have, and like wanting everyone to win.
Yeah.
Like being happy for other people. It's so weird to me when I see someone do well and people try to justify why they did well. It's like, who cares? Like he did well. Be happy for him.
Yeah.
And don't like try to justify why he's not. Just go, hey, if he did it, I can do it too. And so that's like for me been a helpful mindset, and like I prefer to live that way. It's much more positive, and I feel like a lot more good comes out of that.
Definitely.
Which is like trying to always look at the negative or trying to find, well, he only did that because of this, or I just feel like it's such a loser mentality.
For sure. And like especially in our space, right? There's a lot of competitiveness for a long time where people are like, well, if they're going to buy their stuff, they ain't gonna buy my stuff. And it's like
all the time.
When I finally,
they're gonna buy their stuff anyways. That's the thing. They're gonna buy it anyways. Like even if you had the best program, they're still gonna buy someone else's stuff.
For sure. It's like that. We're in that world of motivating people to go and learn and grow. It's like we don't have all the answers, and like then you can start sending people clients and helping people out. And like when I finally dropped that like scarcity mindset and chose the abundant mindset, and like sat in the rooms with the people that I thought were my competition, it's like we learned so much from each other in an hour. Where if I just would have called them 2 years earlier,
and then
I would have made so much more money.
Yeah, and you're like homies. I used to do that too. Like it's funny, but like Hermosi actually tried to be my friend like years ago, and I was like, nah, like I'm not gonna be his friend. He's trying to sell me something, and then we finally connected, and he was like, yeah, dude, like I just like wanted to connect.
Yeah,
and like he's become a good friend of mine, and so it's I just think it's a more helpful mindset to like want to help people and be open minded, and not like, oh, if I give this guy this secret, he's going to beat me. I just like prefer the way you put it.
Yep. Dope, man. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Everybody listening in, thank you for joining us for another abundance episode. How do we support you? Like, what is the main service that you want to offer to our audience that we can really help you out with?
So, the next phase I'll be doing is like, stepping out as a CEO and just, kind of being an advisory, 2 ways, like YouTube. I'm really trying to start up leveling my content. Like we were talking about earlier, personal branding. I'm really just trying to like put good stuff out with like no CTA really. So, connect with me on YouTube, but if, they're looking to get help with starting a business, my main company is Elite CEOs, and they just go to eliteCEOs.com and check it out. I think we're 4.9 out of 5 on Trustpilot. We've got like 18,000 clients we've worked with. I mean, we got so many reviews. I feel like, you can't scroll all the way down. So it's been fun, and we enjoy it. I enjoy it. And, just like help change people's lives as much as we can.
Dope. Yeah, man. And we'll make sure to drop your link below here so you guys can check that out as well. So thank you all for being here, Tanner. Thanks for being here. That wraps up another episode of Abundance.io podcast. We'll see you next time.